During the Galactic Civil War, Darth Vader had slaughtered the Grand Hutt Council. On the planet Jakara, an auction for Han Solo, frozen in carbonite, took place. This auction was hosted by Crimson Dawn and was attended by the Hutt Council. However, the auction soon turned to chaos, and in orbit above the planet Jakara, the Hutts and Imperial forces battled each other. This was due to the manipulation of one Hutt who was secretly allied with Crimson Dawn. As retaliation, the Emperor commanded Darth Vader to end the Hutt insurrection, and thus boarded the Hutt flagship and brought an end to the Hutt Council. Jabba the Hutt was left alive as the remaining leader of the Hutt Cartel after these events. Flash forward a few years later, and Jabba the Hutt is dead, and the Hutt Cartel is reeling. They've lost their entire leadership from the last few decades at the least, ending when Jabba was killed by Leia on Tatooine, and that plays a big role in the rise of other criminal syndicates. However, there may have been more leadership appointed by Jabba. In the Aftermath books, which take place in the first year after the Battle of Endor, it is stated that the Hutt Cartel was in disarray after Jabba's death, but that the Hutt Cartel leadership was still trying to determine who would lead them. In fact, even in the book Bloodline, it is stated that the Hutts had gone through the wreckage of Jabba's pleasure barge, the Katana, in order to ascertain how Jabba died and to hide any evidence of his demise so that public perception of the Hutts would not sour. They didn't want people to see how vulnerable they could be. They also wanted to find this evidence of Jabba's death so they could accurately handle the matter of succession, the matter of Jabba's will. The one bit of lore I wanted to point out was that I distinctly remember the Hutt Council being referred to explicitly by name in the Aftermath books, with regards to their investigation into Jabba's death. However, having skimmed that trilogy, I can't for the life of me find that mention anywhere, even in the preludes, and I feel like I'm maybe just delusional and remembering something that I never actually read. I've reread the Aftermath trilogy quite a number of times, and have made videos on the series, even one about the Hutt Council existing after Jabba's death, based on this bit of lore that I read. I don't know, maybe I'm experiencing the Mandela effect or something. Either way, I'm going to reread that trilogy and figure out for certain where and if that mention is in the books. But for now, I'd like to just talk about the implications on the lore should the mention of the Hutt Council actually be in the Aftermath trilogy. And that is, that if the Hutt Council existed after Jabba's death, it would likely either be made up of Hutts that Jabba installed there himself after the rest of the Hutt Council was killed, so that Jabba still maintained complete control of the cartel, but with lesser Hutts in the council that only answered to him. Or the other Hutts in the council beforehand, the ones that Darth Vader slaughtered during the Galactic Civil War, had children of their own to pass their positions down to, kind of like Jabba had with Rada. Whether this second iteration of the Hutt Council existed or not, the outcome was still ultimately the same. For years after the Galactic Civil War, the Hutt Cartel was still in disarray and held less power than before Jabba. Now, once more, flash forward to the movie The Mandalorian and Grogu. Spoilers ahead for that movie. Speaking of Rada the Hutt, he had refused the throne left behind by Jabba, but his existence was still a threat to Jabba's cousins, who now also wanted to rise to power in the Hutt Cartel. Jabba's cousins, the twins, had even attempted to challenge Boba Fett for Jabba's former territory, but backed down once the Pike Syndicate was involved, another hint at the Hutt Cartel's lack of influence at this point in the timeline. The twins had then contracted the New Republic for help rescuing their nephew Rada the Hutt, but with the intention of keeping him locked up so that he could not threaten the twins' rise to power and influence. All of this, I think, could imply similar situations with the other seats available on the Hutt Council, if those seats still existed. Based on the actions of the twins and what is mentioned of the Hutt Cartel overall, the quest for leadership amongst the syndicate seems to be a free-for-all. Regardless, the twin cousins of Jabba eventually meet their fate after a fistfight with their nephew Rada. Indirectly, Rada causes their death. The twins were actually devoured by a huge dragon snake. Shortly after this, the Hutts were dealt another heavy blow when the New Republic destroyed the twins' palace, which may or may not have also blown up an untold number of other Hutts dwelling in that palace on Nal Hutta. This chaos experienced by the Hutt Cartel obviously severely weakened them, and a number of those in the galaxy oppressed by the Hutt Cartel were able to free themselves. In fact, on the planet Narkanji, a Hutt colony world, the human colonists subjugated by the Hutts there took advantage of the weakened state of their overlords after an internal gang war took place. These colonists struck out on their own and called themselves Kanji Club. The Hutt Cartel still existed for decades after, but seemingly never again did they reach the former height of power they once held in the galaxy. By the time of the First Order, for example, Frankie the Hutt ran a hotel and casino on his own as seen in the show Resistance. And that should cover it for this video. I'm going to reread the Aftermath trilogy again and update the description of this video with the citation and actual lore regarding the mention of the Hutt Council, if it's actually there in the first place anyway, so keep an eye out for that. But thank you so much for watching, I hope you enjoyed this.